Do you have so much free time that you actively listen to songs that have a similar runtime to the Minions movie? Do you consistently partake in a very green activity that I can't highlight in the first 30 seconds of a YouTube video? If so, there's probably a very good chance you've listened to the hour-long metal epic Dopesmoker by Sleep. You also probably look a little bit like this. What you may not be aware of in regards to Dopesmoker is the short-term negative effect it had on the band. You'd think an album about a caravan of priests travelling across Sandsea in search of the rift-filled land could only result in prosperity, squealing nerds and extremely bloodshot eyes, but no. Actually led to the band splitting up. Before we get into why that is, let's explore Dopesmoker and Sleep as a band and see what led them to the creation of this crazy album. American doom band Sleep would begin as an expansion of the band Asbestos Death, which was originally made up of vocalist and bassist Al Cineros, drummer Chris Hackius, and guitarist Tom Choi. Asbestos Death would be upgraded to a quartet in 1990, adding guitarist Matt Pike to the mix. Before the name changed to Sleep, Tom Choi would be replaced by Justin Marler. This would begin the trend of erratic lineup changes that can only be a result of that. These nuts! Sleep would crash, or should I say aimlessly wander onto the scene with their debut album Volume 1, which led to a devoted fanbase as well as, I'd assume, a lot more coughing throughout the United States. With comparisons to the likes of St. Vitus, Sleep were beginning to sit comfortably within the doom metal scene, apparently a little bit too comfortable for some, as Justin Marler would quit the band to become a monk, reverting Sleep back to a trio. Sleep would continue working, releasing Volume 2 in 1991 and Sleep's Holy Mountain in 1992. It will be the latter that will receive the most praise, being commonly touted as the seminal album in the evolution of metal. This album reached the ears of much more crusty, blackened lung individuals, resulting in Sleep being offered an extremely lucrative deal from London Records. The label signed Sleep based on the performance of Holy Mountain. The fanfare and positive reviews gave them the impression that Sleep would be able to replicate that same success if they were completely left to their own devices, which resulted in Sleep being given full creative control. This, combined with the fact that Sleep were the only metal band on the label, gave them the impression that they would receive some sort of preferential treatment. So with high hopes, full creative control, and a six-figure deal, Sleep would roll up the evil beat and get to work. The writing of Dopesmoker would begin whilst the band were touring with Cathedral. They came up with probably the most idea ever. How about we just make one incredibly long song, fill the song with references to something very illegal and frowned upon by boomers, who probably made up a lot of the label executives, and slap that on the album and call it a day. Now, that makes the whole process sound very simple. But if you think about it, how the f do you even remember the entirety of an hour-long song, let alone perform and record? The song would take them 4 years to write, with there being constant changes to certain sections throughout those 4 years, probably due to... They even struggled when trying to figure out how to arrange the song, as they were unable to listen to the entire thing back due to the limitations of tape recording. By 1995, Dopesmoker was ready to record, although recording didn't actually start until 1996. They were too busy completing side quests or something, I don't know. They would begin recording. Unfortunately, one of the main side effects of this is a poor memory, which led to Sleep forgetting sections of the hour-long song, resulting in Dopesmoker getting slower and slower in tempo, only to the later delight of people who probably look like this. The length also heavily affected the recording process. Reel-to-reel tape can only hold 22 minutes at a time, meaning Sleep had to record Dopesmoker as 3 separate songs that can be perfectly spliced together at the end of the entire process. Sleep wanted 2 things from Dopesmoker sonically: length and pure volume. This led to the recording engineer creating custom-built amps designed to be so loud that no one was able to be in the same room as the amps. They played the music from a separate room whilst half a dozen microphones picked up the ensuing chaos. So after all this, they had remembered the song, recorded it all without causing any kind of or injury, and were able to splice it perfectly on tape. You'd think they'd be happy with the final product. Nope, they couldn't decide on the final version, eventually coming to a decision a few months later. So remember, the label promised them full creative control. Well, the individual who actually made that promise would be replaced during the lengthy filled production of Dopesmoker, which resulted in a boardroom full of short-haired white men in suits looking very confused when being presented with an album with only one song. They were even more confused after the 63-minute runtime. They outright refused to release the album in the current format. The label hired individuals to remix the album into a state they saw more fit for release, although they were all just extremely confused on what to do to make the album more palatable for a mainstream audience. Sleep downright refused to release the album in an edited state, resulting in a clash between the label and the band, leading to a stalemate. Ultimately, London Records decided to decline the release of any version of Dopesmoker, which led to infighting between the band members. Bassist Al Cineros completely refused to release any edited version of Dopesmoker, whilst Matt Pike saw it as a waste to leave the album completely unreleased due to the time they had spent working on it. The tension reached a boiling point as in 1997, Sleep would go their separate ways. Not before they released Dopesmoker themselves, however, those cheeky little and that was it. One of the most promising doom bands, a band that was a pioneer for an entire subgenre and movement, a band that probably had extremely questionable eating habits, had to come to an end. An ending that was caused by an idea and concept so radical it led to their creative vision being limited by a label that had promised not to do exactly that. They had created something so alien and strange for the time that countless experts at the label couldn't even figure out a way to edit the album. Since the late 90s, multiple official and unofficial editions of Dopesmoker have been released, including a version with pressed within the vinyl. For the most part, the album's legacy has vastly overshadowed the story behind the project's creation, which both makes and doesn't make sense. Obviously, the music should always be the focal point when looking at the legacy of a project, but also, did no one have any questions at all when looking at the length of the song? Dopesmoker is commonly seen as a masterpiece nowadays, with each new reissue of the project receiving better reviews than the last, which resulted in Sleep reuniting in 2009 for a handful of shows, and eventually releasing another project in 2018 named The Sciences, which is more akin to the formula of Holy Mountain than Dopesmoker. By that I mean a singular song within The Sciences doesn't require multiple toilet breaks. It's hard to guess what might have happened to Sleep's career if they had decided to alter the Dopesmoker concept slightly. They're a band who are continuously picking up steam within a genre where the fans are as loyal to the bands as they are to their favourite plant. Perhaps their career would have exploded to heights that are rarely seen within doom and metal, or maybe the obscurity, allure and overall weirdness of Dopesmoker has benefited their legacy more in the long run. It's difficult to tell. Luckily for us, Sleep did the exact opposite of what Sleep do after experiencing a mild inconvenience, as they decided to form new projects within the same style they were known for under Sleep. Two of the members would go on to form Omp, which manages to reach a similar absurd sludge that was achieved in the early works of Sleep. If anything, it's more weird, including Tibetan and Gregorian chants in their music. The guitarist of Sleep, Matthew Pike, also went on to play with High on Fire, which will be very successful. Dopesmoker's legacy will live on, if not in music, in the hearts of many as they go on to make the age-old decision. Tonight, do I listen to Dopesmoker, or do I watch the hit mockumentary Surf's Up?